Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Stock, and today I have the opportunity to work on another reel that a lot of folks consider the best reel ever made, or at least in a class with them. This is the Daiwa SS Tournament 1300, and I did one of these 2600 whiskers, and there was a comment or a question in my previous videos asking if I could show the insides of one. Well, I don't have the 2600 anymore, but I have the 1300. And this is a very unique reel. It was a reel that was called the square drive, I guess because the bottom of the reel was a square drive. It's got a worm drive inside of it for an oscillation system. It's got forged gearing. It was made in the late 1980s, introduced in the late 1980s. One of the best, I think, one of the smoothest operating reels that Daiwa's ever made for sure. Kind of compares with the Shimano Stratic. So we're going to take this reel apart. We're going to show you how to service it and how to keep this reel running for a long time to come. Well, in order to do that, I want to remove the exterior parts, and while I do that, I'm going to ask that you subscribe to my channel if you do like fishing reel repair, if you do like fishing reels, if you do like fishing, if you want to learn more about all of these, then I would appreciate your subscription. You're going to see an awful lot as I do these videos. You're going to learn how reels are made. You're going to learn the differences between particular reels, the strengths and weaknesses. You're going to almost always see a reel taken apart, serviced, and cleaned, and how that goes into doing what needs to be done to get the reels back and fishing again, giving them a second chance. So I just cleaned up a little bit. There was some dirt on the inner pieces of the rotor cup, so I figured that was a good time to do that. And in order to get this reel apart, you have to start by removing this little cap on the bottom of the reel. So it's a good place to tell you right now that as you start to service your fishing reels, to take pictures along the way. That's probably why I have a question from the one of the viewers out there on the 2600. It sounded to me like they took it apart. They lost the orientation of the pieces and parts. And well, they were kind of reaching out asking for some help in terms of showing how that works. Well, we took that off, and you see that there's two case screws. There's another case screw up under the rotor, but you can't get there because the axle shaft is in the way. Well, interestingly enough, I had one of these in for service not that long ago, and it came in for service because the reel was not going up and down. And it wasn't going up and down because the axle shaft was broken. And how did the axle shaft get broken? My guess is somebody tried to wrench this off, saw two square sides to the axle shaft, thought maybe that unscrewed, twisted it, and that's that resulted in a breakage. Well, that's not the way it comes off, and we'll show you that in just a moment. But right now I want to take the screw that's hiding under the screw cap out so that I can remove the handle. So this is considered among the finest reels ever made. It has a great reputation, had a long run, and got discontinued. I was just talking to somebody the other day, said it got discontinued because it wasn't making the sales volumes that Daiwa had hoped. Well, you know, sometimes these reels should be given that second chance, if you will, regardless of what the sales volumes are. A good reel will last, and it will enhance the reputation. All right, that's a long screw. It's a stainless screw, and that's part of what you see when you do this reel, the quality of the materials inside the reel. That should enable us to pull the handle out. One of the things I like to do when I take a reel out like this, I want to just put that screw right back in there, like that, so that I don't lose it. And I want to put that in my parts tray. My parts tray takes all the pieces and parts that I had and sets them aside. And that helps me to know where they are when it comes time to reinstall. All right, how do you get that axle shaft off? Well, you'll notice we took the cap off, and there's a window here. There's a hole. And as you rotate the reel down, you're going to see that a screw appears that's holding that axle shaft assembly in place right there. Put it up close because somebody's been trying to find it. Right there. You have to rotate your axle shaft down. That brings that into view, and then you remove that screw to remove the axle shaft. This is a good place to tell you take pictures along the way. You absolutely want to and need to understand how the reel came apart so that when it's time to put it back together again, well, you know how to do that too. Now, I'm taking pictures on a video. You don't need to do that, but anything that you can do, cell phone, digital camera, whatever, to note the pieces and the parts is going to be helpful when it comes time to put it back together. That's a small screw that comes out. Not sure, yeah, there's a little piece here. You want to note the orientation on this little piece. So this could go two ways, I'm sure. One side has the indentation for the taper of the screw, and the other has a little hook, and that little hook is pointing up. With that out, you can pull the main axle shaft, and I like to clean most of the pieces and parts as soon as I take them off. You do not need to remove that click mechanism up top. This shaft seems very even, but we're just going to use some steel wool right now to clean it off. And then that too goes in there. If you like, just like we did with the handle, you can put that, well, that screw goes into the other carrier. Sorry. But let me just put those three together. All right. Now I can remove the rotor. That's held in by a clip and a Phillips head screw. When I take these off and I put them into my parts tray, that parts tray has actually got 8 corners to it. And I generally will just put a piece in each corner so that I know which assembly it belongs to. So right now you can see I have my axle shaft on the one side, I have my rotor tie down on the other side, I have my handle component and outside case on the another side. Doesn't matter how you organize, this one happens to work for me, but if you have something that works better for you, go for it. But this is not the only way to manage pieces and parts that come off of assemblies. That's the rotor nut, it's a 10mm nut, and then we should be able to remove the rotor. There we go. Be patient with those. Don't force them. Don't be in any rush. There's no need to. You're taking the time to service your reel. That reel probably is only getting serviced once a year. It's going to take you about 20-25 minutes maybe to service it. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on your skills. There's no reason at all that you need to force the issue and race around and forget steps just because you need an extra minute. All right, I just put some cleaner on there, rod and wheel cleaner. I want to get that dirt off of here. Clean it up while I have the opportunity. Get rid of some of the old films. Put that nut into the parts tray before it gets in the way. You'll notice we have a little bit of dust and dirt in here. I'm going to use a penetrating oil underneath here and a paper towel. I always like to use the least abrasive of the things for cleaning as possible. I don't want to scar anything if I don't need to, but if I need something stronger, well, you've seen me. I've used the 4.0 steel wool, which is going to be a buffing or polishing steel wool. You've seen I've used the scrubby pad, which is less abrasive than that, and you've seen I've used the paper towel, which is the least abrasive. While I'm doing this, I have the rotor off. I'm going to put an oil in the seam of both bail slots and on the rotor. You do not need to remove the bail if it's functioning, and this one's functioning. Surprise, there is no tag underneath here that would come out that would act as a bail trip. That's because of the design of the reel. The design of the reel with that bail open is actually to hit this wheel, and that wheel is going to ride it up as it comes out to form that, to flip it over. That's going to be your kick. Okay, we should have the side plate now. We do. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 We also have a top assembly here, so that's a good place to take a picture. Notice that you have a cog and a washer on top of that cog and a spring that runs around that washer that's going to control your anti-reverse. This is an old-fashioned eccentric anti-reverse. This is not a instant anti-reverse reel. So I'm going to remove that assembly now. Take the picture again. You have a wide side on the bottom. You have your claw or your click ratchet, and then you have that spring coming off of there. That goes into my parts tray. Well, what's needed now is to take the side plate off. And here's those 4 screws that we were talking about in terms of the ones that hold the side plate on. And you can say that they were nicely hidden. And well, if you weren't in search of these things, you probably wonder where in the world and how is that side plate attached. So I'm going to take these out and I'm going to lay them on my table. That's the next step. And I'm laying them on my table because I want to make sure they're the same size. If these are not the same size, then I want to note where the odd one is so that when I go to install, I can put it in. And I can see that one of these is not going to be the same size. These 3 are the same size and they come on those 3 sides, but this one has a smaller head. So it's going to be the left bottom corner that accepts the smaller screw. Once you have them, find a spot in your parts tray to put those in. And while I'm about to remove the side plate, I want to encourage you, if you have any questions on this reel, or any reel in particular, maybe you're working on one and it's not going your way, maybe you lost track, maybe you have a question about that, maybe you're stuck on the reassembly or something, then leave that question in the comment section of this video or any video, and I will be happy to try and answer that question for you. Well, before I did anything, I just switched over the anti-reverse just to get it out of the way. We're going to be able to remove this pinion gear without removing the dog, and that's fine. But right now, well, that's what this question was asked about on my forum, which was, can you show me the inside of this reel? So let's do that. We take that off. The first thing you're going to see is your bearing and your main gear. And this should come out just simply by pulling it out, just like that. This is a high quality bearing from and gear. From what I understand, this is a forged gear. It's not a cheap gear by any stretch of the imagination. And I guess it would be comparable today to, I guess, what would be called CNC or something like that, the current line. It's also a very light gear. Remove the bearing. I'm going to soak that bearing with oil. And let that just kind of go in there. I oil bearings. I don't use grease on them. And there is a shim washer that goes between the bearing and that main gear. Well, normally I would tell you to go clean out those teeth, but there's nothing in any of these teeth. The reel's dry. So we're going to just be able to go ahead and lube that up. And that's basically what service is about. It's cleaning, it's checking for damaged parts, and it's lubricating for reuse. Well, I just showed you an example of what you would do. Get a brush, a hard brush, pull through those seams if you do see some dirt in there. And if it's particularly stubborn, we'll go ahead and grab a pick and just work each tooth until it's clean. This one's in good condition. We're going to leave it right there. Actually, I'm going to put it right with the bearing. Inside here, we have the pinion gear still. So let's go up top, and we're going to remove the pinion gear. Take your picture here. One of the things you're going to note is that this collar for the pinion gear is different on one side versus the other. It's not symmetrical. So the one with the tag is going to go to the back. That's going to be near that anti-reverse dog. Let's go ahead and take that apart. Before I do that, I want to put that metal case into my parts tray so I don't lose that. Notice on this one, when you go to do this, you have 2 screws And what are we going to do with those screws? Well, we're going to lay them on our bench, and we're going to make sure that those screws are the same size. And they are. So I'm just going to put that over here for a moment because I want to pull my pinion gear out now, and that should simply come up without any resistance. Remember, that's the top, and at the top goes to the back. Here's our bearing. There is a shim washer under that bearing. It's a very small washer. I'll take it off so you can see. But that goes on top of the pinion gear and under the bearing. And then we're going to do the same thing with the pinion gear here that we did with the main gear. I'm going to go grab a brush. I'm going to pull through that main gear, or that pinion gear. The main gear on my mind. And we're going to make sure all of the channels are nice and clear and clean. Well, I think you're starting to see why this reel is so sought after 50 years after it was made. Well, 40 years after it was made, late 1980s. And I'm just going to load this up with grease. I'm using Penn Precision Reel Grease for the grease. I'm going to take my oil. And this is a shielded bearing. The other one was not. I'm just going to let that sit in there as the bearing. And that's how I know the difference between the two. Now I'm going to take that little washer and put that onto the stem. I'm going to take that oiled bearing next. That's my assembly. I'm just going to stand that right in my parts tray over there. I have my 2 screws and my tie down. We'll put that in another section of my parts tray. And you can see my parts tray is starting to get filled up, but I have organization in each one of those in terms of where those pieces and parts are. I left that off to the table because I actually wanted to clean it. There's that film. I should have enough on this to move this. Well, I can until I can't reach it with that. I'm going to use a cotton swab to get into this little section here. And again, there's no reason why you shouldn't take the time to go do the cleaning while you're doing the servicing of the reel. You've invested all that time to set yourself up to clean and service the reel. Well, use it. All right, that's a nice clean case part. That's the one part I don't take off when I go and do the servicing. I leave the worm gear in place. If you need to remove the worm gear, you can pull out the little slot here, this little tag, and that will unlatch it. It's a U-clip. And then you can slide the worm gear down. But I just avoid that. How's that? Being completely upfront and honest with you. I'm going to oil the bearing. I'm going to oil the main gear, the pinion gear, worm drive. I'll get it right yet. I'm going to put the grease onto the drive part that drives the worm gear. All right, that's it. That is all of the components that make this reel up. So what have we done so far? We've cleaned the reel. We've checked all the pieces and parts to make sure that they're in good condition. And we've serviced the reel by greasing it and oiling it as appropriate. I got one more side of the reel here, so we're going to go ahead and do that service. I'm just holding my hand on the open side. I'm not sure anything's going to fall out. I don't think anything's going to fall out. But things fall out, so there you go. All right, nice clean there. We're going to clean under the stem of this reel. And this is a roller, so it doesn't hurt to put oil on that roller. Roll it a couple of times. This is also the override shaft for the anti-reverse, so you can put a little bit of oil in there. And we can go ahead and do the reassembly of this reel. What's the reassembly? Well, it's the reverse process of taking it apart. So we're going to start with the pinion gear that we took out. I'm going to make sure. I just saw a little bit of dirt there. I want to get that off. Use a cotton swab. There we go. Now I can go ahead and put that pinion gear back in. Seat the bearing. Just just like that. If this bearing isn't sitting flush with the case, nice and even, and you've done something wrong, stop and make sure that you put it in the right way. Next up then, remember we said we have one that looks like a hook. It's not the same. So let's center that up. And then I have these two little Phillips head screws here. And I'm going to just put a dab of grease onto the tip of my screwdriver to kind of help me hold it in place as I get that screw started. Because me and small screws, we don't play well together. Tighten that down, make sure you're lined up on the other hole. And then we can put this one back in play. And if these things fall, well, just be patient. Take a deep breath. Get them set up again. All right, so those two are on. If you're playing ahead of me, well, you know what comes next. Right now we're going to look for the anti-reverse eccentric and click ring. Remember what we said. This is your setup. Look for the hook. The hook's got to look like the number 7. If you put it in like the reverse of that, well, you're going to have it in wrong. Look for the slot on that anti-reverse dog. It's right there. And you want to merge the two. So get it on the shaft because it has a rectangular center to it. Get it on the shaft. Then put it in. Then turn your anti-reverse off. And this is eccentric driven, not a spring. So pull it in. You'll see that the tip falls out. Pull back and you'll see that the tip goes into the slot to stop the reel. That's how it works. Just like that. And I'm not sure you're seeing that, so let's move it a little bit closer, but that's how your anti-reverse works. Once we've completed the assembly of the anti-reverse dog, it's time to put the case back on. That should simply slide over and snap in nice and tight, which is exactly what it did there. Remember we have 4 screws and one of them is the oddball. Do you remember where the oddball one went? If you don't, go back to your pictures and take a look. The 3 large screws go to the bottom right hand side and the 2 tops. The small screw goes where that worm gear assembly is. And you can see if you tried to put the larger screw into that assembly, the problem that you would have is that screw would extend out and would kind of jam up the worm gear. You avoid that by just making a smaller screw, which is what they did in manufacture. Here's your second one. You can see there's a lot of engineering in this relatively small reel. It's all very well done. All right, we got one more big one here. And we've got the small one. I like this reel a lot. All right, and then we have the small one, and the small one, as we mentioned, goes in the bottom left-hand corner of the reel. And you can see that's a 30-something-year-old screw, stainless steel. Not a sign of rust or corrosion or anything on there. We've tightened up. We want to make sure that the point where the axle shaft is coming through is all the way at the bottom. So I'm going to switch this to the off position. I'm going to bring this down as much as I can so that when I bring my axle shaft in, I have the screw set right there. Oops, I just dropped this, so I know how it goes to you. It's the number 7. If you're trying to put it in as another piece, well, you're probably going to be in trouble. Before I can put that axle shaft in, I have to put the rotor back on. So let's grab that rotor and set that down. We'll go into our parts tray and we'll grab the nut. That's a 10mm nut, if I didn't say that early on. It goes on in a traditional set. It goes on in a clockwise manner. Sometimes you'll find these nuts go on in a counterclockwise manner. And let's go on our tray, get that tie-down clamp. And you should be able to center it over one of the 2 holes. which I've just done there. And then we'll grab that screw and put that back in. That'll tie down the rotor now. That's an awful lot of work to make sure that we can put the axle shaft back in. Boy, that's got a lot of turns to it. All right, so that's set now. We're all set now. We have the carrier below for the axle shaft. Take your axle shaft and just a very light coat of grease. If you put anything more than a light coat of grease on, it's just going to get scraped off as it comes through that pretty tight tolerance on the pinion gear. Bring that down. You may have to rotate it to bring it through. Eventually you will get it through, and you're going to have that hole for this access with the screw. All right, we're getting closer now. This is our little clamp that's going to hold the axle shaft and cover the pawl. And remember, the taper side is facing up. This one's a little tough for me, so I'm going to use a little micro pliers to see if I can't set it that way. Then we use my pick to align the hole. It's not like I haven't done this before, but it's always kind of an interesting time when you try to do that. Then we're going to line that screw up so that we can reattach the axle. And this is another one that, gee, that takes an awful lot of turns to seat it, but it's been seated. Cover, look for the screw hole. That's where the side is that's going to take the cover. Big old screw for the bump guard / retaining cover or cap. We're set up for a left-hand drive on this. I want to just take a moment here. I've got to still have that cleaning pad. I'm going to clean off the best I can the handle before that goes back on. A couple of oil points on this. Oh, I just noticed that the little tag for that worm gear came out as I turned the reel around, so let's go ahead and put that back on. Again, that's something that if you didn't know the reel was there, well, that would be a little bit of a problem, right? So this goes in here like that. And put that back in. And that just happened because I guess I turned it upside down to put the screw in. All right, now we'll go with that. We're in good condition. Not tight enough. Now we'll take it a spin, make sure everything's working the right way. Get the screw out of the handle. I'm going to use a little bit of penetrating oil in here. I got a spring assembly that's going to be the trigger release for the handle to collapse. Also got a little bit in here. I would like to clean that handle up a little bit. There's a little bit of dirt in here. And I use the penetrating oil as a degreaser. I put a drop of oil in there, put a drop of oil on the seam. I can go ahead and grab the handle and insert that. Handle screw goes through the other side. And this is something that always just, I find a curiosity. So we've been working with a whole bunch of Phillips head screws, and I turn around here and I have a flat-bladed screw. Why in the world do you change your tools? I guess the answer is because you can. It's a very wide slot for that too. You can see how wide this flat-bladed screwdriver is. It doesn't handle very well. Well, we only have one thing left to do. That's to service the drag washers in this. We'll do that in a moment. I'm surprised with how long all of these screws are. I guess I just don't have the dexterity with this short handle one to move that along easily. Got a cap here now that covers that. Now let's go over to the spool. The spool is clean on the inside. We have a retaining clip that's holding a cup and a drag washer underneath it. That's next. Go ahead and use your pick to pull that out of the groove. Hold it. It's a spring. You don't want to lose that. Clean it off while you're at it too. There's a little bit of dirt there. And now we're going to pull out the assembly with the drag washers. Well, I've been asked to show exactly how these drag washers come out most of the time. So let's just go ahead and put that back in and we'll show you. This is your stack. So your stack, starting from the bottom, is a fabric drag washer, metal fabric drag washer. This is an eared washer with the points pointing down, fabric washer, and then your last cup. And you can see there's remnants of the old drag washer, and there's also, I'm sure, some debris from fishing in there as well. Clean that cup out because dirt is going to affect the ability for those drag washers to operate properly. All right, we're all set there, nice and clean. I'm going to use some drag grease on these. If you don't have drag grease, don't worry. This is Cal's Universal drag grease. If you don't have it, don't worry. You can use regular fishing reel grease. Seat the first one in the cup. Make sure your metal washer is nice and clean. There's no debris on this. 2 more times. I use my glove as a tool to spread that grease around. If there was any excess, wipe it off. You just want a light coating of grease on there. That's to prolong the life of the fabric. It doesn't have anything to do with max drag or holding power or anything like that. It's just that these are permeable. They will dry out if you don't keep them lubed, so keep them lubed. All right, and then we have our top cap. Find the groove in the spool. Insert that. Remember, this is a spring and it's going to shoot, so I keep my finger on there as I put that in. And I make sure it's in all of the slots. This one's a little low on the one, so I'm just going to pull that up with my pick. And if you lose this clip, well, you're not totally out of luck. It's a non-functioning clip, other than it's just going to stop this drag stack from falling out. So don't lose it, but if you do lose it, the drag washers will still work. All right, time to put the spool back on. Just twist that around a couple of times so you've got it all lined up the way it should be. There we go. One more piece to clean off here. I kind of forgot about the top knob as we were doing all of this. Get it underneath. You can see that that cup has ridges, and here's the spring that's sticking out of the side of it, and that spring is going to click as you tighten or loosen the drag. It's going to let you know that. And if you're on a loose drag, that's your bait alert. You can hear it there. I'm going to tighten this down to make sure that I have the holding power that's needed. I do. And now I'm going to back it off because you don't want to press the greases out of there. Well, there you go. So what's left? Well, the only thing left is spin it. See how we did. So it's a very nice, easily spinning reel. Here's your little bump mechanism here. The bail is going to bump that. You can see I can roll that piece. So let's give that a try. We're going to set the bail. It's going to come over and watch how it does that. See how that arm intersects with that wheel. And as you turn it, oh, there you go, a nice easy flip. What a great idea and design with less trauma than the old bang, what I call the bang bars. Just roll it, and there you go. Beautiful reel. That's a nice Daiwa SS Tournament 1300. I think you can see from the engineering and the design of the reel, as well as the manufacturer and the materials included in this reel, that it is one of the most desirable reels out there, and it's all the way from the late 1980s. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please like it. Again, if you want to see more of these, please subscribe. And if you do subscribe, please hit that notification button. To all of our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do. Without you, who knows where we would be in these days and ages. To everyone, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. Good luck fishing. Have a nice day. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.